Hey guys, what's everyone doing on Saturday, October 1st?
Laundry, most likely.
Yeah. Is it some sexy laundry?
Yeah.
Yeah? Gotta get them stains out.
Yeah, they don't come out.
They don't. They don't come out, indeed. But you know who should come out? The fucking listeners of this show, because we are invading the Pittsburgh Gaming Expo on Saturday, October 1st, 6 p.m., because we're hosting a live panel and episode. Gents, are you excited about this?
Yeah, I don't know why they decided it would be a great idea to invite us to this, but I'm fucking stoked.
Poor decisions were made for them.
It's going to be a real good time.
The Midnight Listener said that this is going to be a triumph in panel history of audible noise.
There will be noises, and they will be audible.
They will be audible noises.
And we want you, the dear, sweet, succulent listener, to come on out and join us Saturday, October 1st, the Monroeville Expo Mart in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, as we discuss game changers. Revolution in gaming. What the fuck does that mean? Who the fuck cares?
You're going to find out.
We're going to find out when we get there. It just sounded nice. It sounded good, but you know what's going to sound even better? Our beautiful fucking voices coming out of our beautiful fucking
and in
live
person.
With an audience of people that we might not know.
Oh, we're almost certainly not going to know at least one of them.
At least
one of them. And here's the thing. I'm going to know them all, biblically, by the end of this fucking podcast.
I would love to know what the over-under is going to be of people that are going to wander in, listen to what we're saying for just a few moments, and then get up and then walk out.
I think someone should just have a tally mark
Just
on
start
stage.
keeping score up there.
But we want you to all join us. There's only one really great way, and that's to be there live and in person. To do so, all you need to do is buy an admission for Saturday's event. Now, it's not just us. I know we're enough for the fucking cost of admission. It's only $20, $25 at the door, $20 in advance. But there's also, it's a gaming convention. So there's other panels, there's other speakers, there's live music, there's live arcade games, vendors selling video game specific shit.
Oh,
there's
they got
beer. It's gonna be fun.
Tabletop games, console games. I mean, it's a video game lover's dream. So if you have an opportunity to find yourself in Monroeville, first off, fucking come out and check us out and hear what we have
what
to say.
What the fuck are you doing in Monroeville?
You can do whatever the fuck you want after that.
Yeah, come on, Monrovers. But make sure you get your ass out there, check us out, check out the convention, support some local artists and stuff like that too. It's going to be a great fucking time.
And we want to invite you to not only keep an eye on our Facebook page and our social media, but go to PittsburghGamingExpo.com for tickets and other events happening at the convention. Gentlemen, I'll see you there.
We'll be there.
Excellent.
This week on the show, we're going to discuss something of extreme intricacy. That's right, we're going to talk about the College of Cardinals, the Vatican. It's the papacy. What is the Catholic Church all about? How does one become the leader of the Catholic Church? The trials, the tribulations, and all that comes with it. It's Popin' Ain't Easy. This week on Nothing Good.
Wow, listen, that was an amazing intro as always, and I'd really like to talk about this particular subject, but first we got to talk about SummerSlam 1992.
Fuck you.
I mean, listen, this is why we're
here.
But you.
You know who you are. You know what you did.
You know what you did.
Do we have any actual downloads from Vatican City?
I don't think, for very good reason, they don't keep track of people's internet access.
That's a really good
Everything's
point.
in private browsers.
Yep. The entire city is in incognito mode.
We're talking, anyhow, so let's talk about why we're here. First and foremost, gents, how you guys doing this fine evening?
Pretty good.
Doing fucking great, man.
Very well.
I'm doing well. I'm doing great. Let's talk about 30 years ago.
30
We're talking
years.
That's a long
almost
time.
exactly 30 years ago.
Yeah.
We were all just babies.
Supple
I mean,
babies.
not
Older than
really.
babies, but
I mean, I was like 10 years
small
old, but
children.
okay.
We're still single digits.
We keep
I
mentioning
was,
babies,
I
and
was
we're
almost 10 years
We're
old.
we're almost 10.
We keep mentioning babies and being supple young children. We're going to get downloads of Vatican City.
I was just going to say, you got to watch what you're saying.
You know why? Because Popin' ain't easy.
Oh, my God.
Open ain't easy.
We're offending at least 6 people. 30 years
They're going to
ago,
be relocated
at
to a new
Wembley
parish
Stadium.
soon. It's going to be okay.
The audible
What-
sound of people shutting off our podcast.
We're talking about one of the most important moments in wrestling history.
Absolutely.
Right? We're talking 1992, which is a long fucking time ago.
It is a long fucking time ago.
Are you talking about Earthquake and Typhoon being the WWF Tag Team Champions?
No.
We will.
But I'm talking about the main event.
Are you talking about Shawn Michaels versus the Model?
No, I'm talking about the main event.
Wait,
Martel.
that wasn't the main event?
In someone's heart, it was.
Probably just Martel's.
There's so much to talk
I
about.
got love for the Model. Thank you very much.
Yes. And when we get to it, I also have love for the Martel. Martel. It's weird.
The Martel.
The Martel. But it's called Rick the Martel.
You know what's great?
Somewhere
the
a French
Martel.
Canadian is mad at me. What?
If anybody just started paying attention to wrestling during the Attitude Era and NCW or WCW, NWO, and all that kind of stuff, they would have no fucking clue. If it was Martel or Model or Martel or anything, you could say anything you want and they'd fucking buy it because nobody knows who that fucking guy was.
Yeah, not anyone except outside that era. You're
Yeah.
right. So, yeah, oh well. We're going to talk about it. And we want to
We'll
talk
get
about
there.
this. Yes, we will.
This is totally off topic, but definitely on topic. Didn't Martel have a run in WCW?
He did.
Right?
For like 5 minutes.
He did. And it wasn't a bad run for
No, it was
what he
actually pretty
doing.
good. So I don't want to flex my nerd vein in my thick,
Why
throbbing wrestling penis
he
here.
flexed like 14 times during the fucking match.
Okay, well, yeah, that's all he does. He just, could you imagine being that tight all the time? Like, just like he lets go, he just fucking expands. No, they brought him in like under that whole Eric Bischoff doing that fucking. We've got a former WWF champion coming in for weeks, and it was Rick Martel.
It was Rick
and he
fucking
actually
Martel.
got into a good program with Booker T over the TV championship until he got hurt. And then he did the most awesome ex-WWF wrestler thing. He got hurt and got paid by WCW until the company closed down. So good for Rick
good.
Martel.
Good for him.
Yeah, good for him.
What
for
you're
him.
saying that Booker T had a good run with somebody, as always.
Yes.
As
Who did Booker T not have a good run with?
Oh, that is a really great question, and I'm sure someone out there has the answer, but I can't think of one. 'Cause
If you
Booker
ha-
T was fucking incredible.
If you have the answer, please feel free to reach out to us on our social media platforms via Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
That's wonderful, wonderful reason. And buy the merch, and then send us your fucking bad Booker T match, and then we will proceed to publicly annihilate you for having such a shitty opinion, but only after having your money. And that's what capitalism is all about.
Nice plug.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Appreciate it.
So let's get to the meat and potatoes. What are we drinking this fine evening?
Well, Doc, why don't you start us off, because you have to unscrew an apparatus. To
Well,
get
I know because I wrote it down this time.
Beautiful.
It's better than screwing an apparatus.
Well,
was early.
first of all,
Well, hold on. Depends on the apparatus.
science, technology is increasing every day.
There's a lot
and
of
a large
metal and
portion
sharp
of our
edges over there. I don't know.
a large portion of our scientific budget in this country goes to increasing the apparatuses that you can screw. I mean, the technology since
Fact.
30 years, it was just a vacuum cleaner with like a rubber glove over it, and now, you can go to a Sunoco and get a device.
Just watch any adult video online. The first 30 seconds as an advertisement for just one of those said devices. Not like I would know, but let's be honest, I probably know.
No, I mean you can skip that ad after a certain period of time. But
not if
but do you want to?
you're a potential buyer.
Yeah, not if it's a really good ad.
Go on.
Sometimes you just go, oh, tell me more.
I can wait. Go ahead. I'll wait.
That's all I'm saying.
So I'm drinking a Tropicana Mango Lime IPA, and even though it is about to be fall, or it is really fall at this point, it's in reference to the SummerSlam. It's in reference to it's a mango lime flavor. It's very festive, and it's really fucking good.
Good.
Yes.
Excellent.
The rest of us, Jafar, why don't you say what the rest of us
Yeah, we are
drinking?
drinking fall seasonal beer from Southern Tier. It's called Harvest. It's an autumn IPA. It's nice and warm. Makes you feel good on the insides.
It's a campfire beer.
Yeah.
It really
Absolutely. Yeah. Gents, I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. I'm ready for fall.
I
Like,
know you are.
I'm diving full into the apple cider. I'm diving full into the pumpkin spice. Like, let's fucking go. Bring it.
I do enjoy a good apple cider, whatever the fuck.
What the fuck does that even look like?
I don't even know. Apple cider.
What is that?
That's nightmare fuel.
What is that? What, just go ahead up to one of those like random like internet generators where you ask artificial intelligence what is an apple spider and just see what happens.
And we'll post that on our social media. And by another thing we always say we're going to do, we never do, posting things to our social media. But you know what? I'm kind of glad that didn't have social media at the time. SummerSlam 1992.
Yes.
It was a time. It was a place.
It was a whole thing.
So this is a snapshot. So should I do the normal, here's a snapshot of wrestling at the time?
I mean, you're really
Sure.
good at it,
At
so you might as
1992.
well.
So right now, wrestling is in what could only be described as its first major decline since the birth of Hulkamania. A large portion of that is the fact that Hulk Hogan has fucked right off of the WWF. Following his monumental, unbelievably fucked up finish with Sid Vicious at the end of WrestleMania 8, a match that should not have been the main event, that included such wonderful wrestlers as Papa Shango, who I actually do like, but is nowhere to be found on this fucking show, and the return of the Ultimate Warrior, Hogan said, fuck this place, I'm going off to do fucking Santa with muscles, or Mr. Nanny, or any of that horse shit. So
Suburban Commando?
Suburban Commando actually was before this.
You're a dead man, Ramsey.
The Undertaker's one starring role in a motion picture. So right now we're in the point of the world is changing for professional wrestling. Sting is currently the man in WCW, along with Lex Luger, and nobody cares. ECW has been recently founded as Eastern Championship Wrestling, not Extreme Championship Wrestling as it would take the turn in the 90s. So all of this wrestling landscape is changing, and now we have SummerSlam, which has been historically the second biggest pay-per-view of the year, and it is the very first in WWF history not to feature Hulk Hogan on it whatsoever. Not even a part of the advertisement as for this pay-per-view. And still, they managed to sell out a pay-per-view for 80,000 reported seats. Why? Because England is fucking starved for entertainment in 1992.
As you're saying that, I would feel remiss if I didn't mention the fact that anytime anybody talks about the attendance at Wembley Stadium for that pay-per-view, it is reported.
It's always alleged.
It is always alleged.
Yeah.
I fucking love that.
Yeah. There's a couple of shows in WWF history that no one ever believes the actual buy rate. And by a couple, I mean every fucking show that they've ever done. Unless you can verifiably understand that they've sold out and didn't pay for it. That only really happened in the Attitude Era.
Yeah, especially if you think about what technology was like in 92. Like, you couldn't just go on Ticketmaster and buy a ticket on your phone or your computer even. Like, you had to go to a box office.
You were waiting in line at Kaufman's.
Yes.
For hours.
So allegedly, they say they sold 65,000 seats in 5 days. Like, that was the window.
The UK is a strange place. Now, however, they do, regardless of how many people actually bought tickets and how many people were in the building, they were a fucking electric crowd.
I mean, amazingly.
The entire show.
Yeah, and you mentioned, wrestling in the U.S. was on the decline during that time, but it was still big in the UK.
Absolutely.
This event was originally supposed to take place in Maryland, just outside of D.C., but McMahon saw an opportunity to take it across the pond where people were eager to get some wrestling and decided to put it in Wembley Stadium instead.
Yeah, you didn't get a lot of overseas pay-per-views typically.
This was the first one.
This was number one.
Yeah. Or even since. I mean, Crown Jewel aside at this
There's
point.
been a few,
there was a lot of UK-only pay-per-views in the Attitude Era.
In your houses, maybe two in your houses that were in the UK, maybe three maximum.
Yeah, well, and a lot of those were pre-tapes that were just aired because on delay in the United States because of the difference in time. But no, we're coming off of a time here where not only did Hogan fuck right off after WrestleMania 8, but Vince knew he was going to fuck right off after WrestleMania 8, which is why the WWF champion is the Macho Man Randy Savage, because to that time, there was one motherfucker he could count on. Wasn't Ric Flair, who had just historically held up Jim Herd in WCW for money, and it wasn't the Ultimate Warrior, who just fucking came back at WrestleMania 8 and would not be long for this world, and he had not yet had the confidence in his quote-unquote new generation, which would begin shortly after this pay-per-view.
Yep.
It's a good old workhorse. You dusting off the Macho Man, who wins the belt, not in the main event at WrestleMania 8, and is your top star heading into this show.
Did anybody else notice that Macho Man Randy Savage look an awful lot like the wrestler Bonesaw from the original Spider-Man movie that Peter Parker
they may be
wrestled?
related.
That's weird, right?
Are they like cousins or like first, second removed or something like that? Or
Possibly.
I know that we had Macho Man for a staggering 32 minutes in his match, and Bonesaw only needs 3. So
I
there
got
is
you
a
for
difference.
3 minutes.
Yep, less than that if he gets a hold of you. Speaking of fucking right off and coming back, the Ultimate Warrior makes his return after telling multiple people to fuck off and what to do and all kind of terrible things. He shows up at the end, misses his cue.
Yep.
Along with Papa Shango at the end of WrestleMania 8, adding to that clusterfuck, a show we absolutely have to cover for a variety of reasons at one point, because there's some good and bad on that damn show. And he's back now and as Vince's number 1B babyface in the show, the organization. That won't last very much longer
sad, but it won't.
after this show.
Yeah,
And it's the only time I'll ever say it's sad because of the performances that were put on later in this program. But the real story as to why we're talking about this is it's largely historically considered a one-match show.
Yep.
Because this show is about the rise of the WWF mid-card champion, Bret the Hitman Hart, and his coming out party.
You may have heard of him.
You may have heard of
Once
him.
or twice.
At least all those times on this fucking podcast, if you've been dealing with it. This is the night that everyone agrees Bret Hart became the man. Why? How? We'll find out.
We will get to that.
So for our dear, sweet wrestling listeners, Bret Hart is often referred to as the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be.
Excellence of execution.
Now, I feel like that title was probably born in Canada. So if you go with the exchange rate into the United States, what does that fucking even mean?
Dave, I don't know.
I've never.
That's a hell of a
You
question.
broke my brain because I don't know.
For the listeners at
Reconcile
home,
that question.
we all have this puzzled look on our face like,
How did you?
fuck, I don't even know how that works.
Has anybody even thought
If you're
about
an
that?
economics professor, will you please write in the show?
Reach out
Fucking
to
Goodwill
us.
Hunting needs
Help
to come and
us
solve that math problem.
So, here we are, guys. It is London, Wembley Stadium, the summer of 1992, and we are here for the show. Now, I want to ask before we get, because I know Doc and I, of course, of our friendship, have discussed this show and the main event multiple times.
Right.
But I would like to know, did you guys ever see this show before watching it for the podcast? What have you heard? What's going on? Jafar.
Yes, I had seen the show as a child and again as an adult, at least one match as an adult, maybe two. So I knew the entire backstory of everything going in. So it was nice to see it again, at least the last 30 minutes.
I understand. Mac. So, were you familiar with the show in a biblical sense before beginning?
I laid with this show for about 3 months back in the summer of 2003. It was sensual. It was warm.
Nice.
It was safe, really. You know, it didn't ask much of me, and it didn't take much more. So, actually, no, I was not actually familiar with the show at all. It's the first time I've actually watched this pay-per-view. And in fact, I didn't really even know a lot of the backstory going into the quote unquote main event, which wasn't the main event, but also was the main event. And clearly, when you watch the show, it's the fucking main event. But I got some feelings about it watching it at this stage. I think I learned a lot. You know, I grew as a human, and I'm not the same man I was before I watched it.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear how you've changed when we get to that point. Well, let's get right down to the nitty gritty. Right, first match.
No,
we're not.
First, I want to talk about
What are we talking about?
the opening pro package that they interview all the
Oh, my
fuckers standing in
God.
the setting.
Please, if you have the same note about this
The
that I do,
same
I
line?
will fucking lose my shit.
That the British Bulldog is going to win whether he wants to or not.
Oh my
Kid had so
god!
much conviction.
I cannot
Fucking
fucking
walked
believe
in.
you had that.
I think everybody, I remember seeing that shit as a kid going, motherfucker, all right.
What's to
Yeah.
the notes?
It's like, that kid meant his shit.
He did.
So it was a she, not a he.
I know that
And
now.
she came out on Twitter a number of years ago as I was the Bulldog kid in that promo package at that pay-per-view.
Wow.
That instantly
And she
got
still
her.
You
stands
want
by
to talk
it.
about breaking
She
a
still
brain?
stands
You
by
just
it.
broke my brain with that, because I thought that was a little boy.
I feel like the Not the Good account has to only follow one person, and it's the Bulldog kid.
Oh my god!
That's fucking perfect. Which
Well,
one of you
okay.
bastards runs our Twitter account? You do, right?
I do.
Yeah. Follow the Bulldog kid.
I will find the Bulldog kid, and I shall follow.
I heard that and I
Yes.
stopped, and I was
It's
like,
weird.
"Wait,
It's a weird thing.
wait." Because I mean, it was a little bit later in the evening when I was watching it. I had a few beers up to this point in time, so I don't really know where my mind was going in all this. And it was kind of one of those things. Did I just actively hear what I thought I heard? No, nobody's going to actually say that the British Bulldog is going to win whether he wants to or not. Wait, is this kid breaking kayfabe?
Yeah, a
What
little
the
bit.
fuck's going
threaten
on
me
here?
with a
My
good
hat's
time.
off to you,
What
lady.
does this
My
kid?
hat's off.
What does this kid know? Did she have the foresight? Did she travel back in time, knowing? Did she have trademarked this Twitter handle 20 years before Twitter was a thing?
Knowing that she was going to be
Possibly.
interviewed. Oh, that's
Right.
a lot of existential questions.
And then I heard it, and I'm like, well, fuck. I'm in. Let's go.
It's like something that, like, okay, I remember it, but I did not recall it when hitting play. And like, what a great way to start this off. Like that, the first memorable thing about this show is in the first 25 seconds and the fan package.
And it might be one of the only memorable things for the next 2+ hours of watching this pay-per-view.
Maybe.
I 1000% disagree about that because there's a lot of memorable things. And for me, just going to segue into our first match here.
Was it Rocco?
Oh, I'm going to rant about Rocco and Jameson and all the other fun stuff that we're going to get to from that era that no one talks about because we don't want to remember. We block it out like a sneaky uncle coming into our room. Fucking Rocco and the Legion of Doom. But before we do, this is the second show. We've only reviewed 2 shows in this era. They've both been in 1992. We only did one match, and that was the Royal Rumble drinking game from 1992.
That was the night that Dave disappeared.
That was the night that I just vanished.
He just so hammered that he disappeared into a vortex of Sid Viciousness. And but one of the things, and it's like 1992 in a fucking nutshell to me. That like you start play on a pay-per-view and you get the intro, the pageantry of the following contest is the Royal Rumble or welcome to SummerSlam, and then and money and Ted DiBiase's, it immediately fucking brings you in to 1992.
Money Inc., baby.
Like it's one of the most iconic theme songs ever. And Ted DiBiase comes out in a fucking snazzy all white.
Listen, I absolutely wrote that down. Like, this motherfucker is ready to play.
He is.
All white. I don't think I've ever really seen him in all white
business,
before.
yeah.
No,
I remember.
No, I think it's
Beyond that.
only 2 shows that he ever wear all white in, and I'm pretty sure it's this in WrestleMania 9 because the people he was wrestling wore all black. I think it's the whole concept. But oh, dude, yeah, you're like, oh, okay, this show starts with Money Goddamn Inc. Ted DiBiase also does one of the most underrated wrestlers of all time, and Bray Wyatt's dad.
Yep.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So I bring this up, and I think I know we've discussed this before. Both I'm pretty sure on the podcast. I know for sure off the podcast, but it's worth bringing up yet again. In like the laundry list of great professional wrestlers, sports entertainers, performers who've never been heavyweight champion of the fucking world, man, like where does DiBiase land on your list? Is he in the top 3 who should have been heavyweight champion at least one good fucking time?
Yeah,
He's in my top 3.
He's got to be, but my brain also does that in Wrestling Nerd thing where he technically had the belt and defended it at house shows before the aired that he never won the belt and took
But
it
that
away
doesn't
from
count.
him. No, but
It's struck from
That's
the
why
record.
he had his own belt.
yeah, exactly.
He was so over he didn't need the heavyweight title. And I get it.
I never get that phrase. It's
get
a
it.
cop out for
It
someone
is,
who
but that
realizing that
is.
they missed the mark on
Yeah.
booking a guy.
He should have been heavyweight
He
champion.
should absolutely. Of course, then again, too, it's babyface territory.
Yeah, I think
It's always
he's on the list, but probably on the bubble, not in the top 3.
He's not your top 3. He's in my definitely my top 3.
Yeah, he's right on the cusp of
He's
that.
in your top 10 for sure.
Yeah,
I think
no doubt.
from a distance, without trying to put yourself in how much heat he had for being the $1 Million Man, it's easy to go, oh, he's on the list, but I don't know if he's the guy. But like when he was WrestleMania 4,
God damn it.
feuding with even that time in the late after 80, between 88 and 92. He was always a viable threat. He always wrestled the babyface champion, and he was always had the fucking heat on him. So it's like it could have.
Imagine him
could
being
have pulled the trigger.
heavyweight champion, and like he would defend it. His whole thing was, I already booked this in my fucking head years ago.
Oh, shit.
He would fucking come out and he'd be like, I'm the hardest working WWF champion of all time. I'll take on all comers. Anybody who out there wants a piece of $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. And then some fucking guy would come out, fucking big jack dude. And then he'd look, and Virgil would like, oh no, and then he'd come out, and then DiBiase they grapple for a second, and he's just fucking lay down, and he'd pin him 1, 2, 3, dude, get up, hand him some money.
That'd be perfect.
He could
That'd be
fucking do that for weeks and weeks,
perfect.
months back in those days, especially.
Do you remember in a previous episode of this podcast available in the archives when we were having a conversation about Herb Jones Star Wars fan fiction?
Yeah, that was very recently.
And you couldn't find it.
you
You
find
know
it?
why you couldn't find it?
Why?
Because it wasn't about Star Wars at all.
It
was about the $1 Million Man,
Man.
Ted DiBiase.
It was on the
And his
WWF.com or AOL.com.
Yeah.
Keyword WWF.
Yeah, that's why you couldn't find it. He fucking buried it.
That's really good. That's really good shit.
Yeah,
That's really good
DiBiase
shit.
was the Han and Virgil was the Chewie.
It would have been money. You could have spent an entire fucking year with him doing that and having Hogan just chase him.
Okay, so then I love that you got that kind of promotion and that kind of booking for DiBiase. And even though they didn't win the championship, the booking for DiBiase has been largely great. Do you know whose WWF booking wasn't great?
IRS.
The fucking opponents for IRS
God
and Money
damn it.
Inc. The legendary tag team, the Legion of Doom, accompanied by Paul Ellering and who?
Rocco.
Rocco?
No
Yeah.
recollection of this.
Fucking puppet. It's because we blocked it out.
I
I
have no
forgot
recollection of this.
about the doll.
Why the
That's
fuck this was
weird.
a thing?
It's fucking weird.
I realize going through this pay-per-view that there is a very specific formula that not necessarily that the pay-per-view was following, but that the WWF talent and booking was following. And that is an over-the-top gimmick that makes almost no sense.
Yes.
Like a hard gimmick, right?
Yeah. Borderline occupation.
Yeah. And everybody had pretty much a manager and escort. Again, most of which made almost no sense.
That's the guy walking out with
That
you.
was the person that was walking out with him. Yeah. And, again, a lot of them were also in a tag team.
So, you gotta say that, like, forgetting and not looking at this card, only knowing the 2 matches on this card, the title match and the very last match, and forgetting everything else on here, when you hear the "What a Rush,"
So good.
you're like, fuck, yes, and that theme song is badass, and then they come out on bikes, and then you got Rocco out there, and it immediately like took all the joy out of it.
Rocco out
So do you guys remember the actual vignettes about Rocco and how they found him?
I decided to not
I
look it
think I
up
blocked it
afterwards.
out.
Because I remember this shit, because again, WWF Superstars was my shit. And so I remember every scrap of details, including we'll get to nails a little bit later in this goddamn show. But there, in order to like show how tough the Legion of Doom are, and how not only physically tough, but mentally tough they are, they go to an area of Chicago that they grew up in, that they have personally assisted in demolishing, showing that the Legion of Doom and Paul Ellering are willing to wreck their own hometown. So imagine what they'll do to Money Inc. And coming through the wreckage and finding all these memories, Paul Ellering finds Rocco, the Legion of Doom's little brother puppet that was always there for them when they needed a friend. And he's gonna fucking bring Rocco with them.
They fucking had each other.
I know.
You don't need a ventriloquist dummy when you're a fucking tag team.
I just imagine Vince McMahon doing a line of cocaine off of some poor stripper's back and going, the Legion of Doom need, pal. A fucking dummy.
At that point, it was still
You're gonna
Linda's.
make a fuck ton of money.
At that point, it was still Linda's back.
It was still Linda's back.
Nobody that rides into the ring on a fucking motorcycle needs a friend. They have a friend.
No,
it's
it's
that
their
fucking
motorcycle.
motorcycle.
It's
Anybody with a motorcycle will tell you.
That's true.
And if you have an issue with driving a motorcycle with what I just said, Noah,
Fuck you.
thank you.
So I want to put this in a general perspective for those maybe at this table, or listening at home, or in your car, or riding a bike, or a tricycle, whatever you
Taking
do.
ventriloquist
I don't judge you.
lessons.
What if they're riding one of those new like electric bike hybrids?
Fucking weird. That's cool too. The Legion of Doom, fuck the Legion of Doom. The Road Warriors were a fucking big deal.
Huge.
Huge.
And it's fun. Like, there's a term that people use called Road Warrior Pop, right? That's a real thing, because they were so goddamn over that the eruption that the fans would create when they would show up was something that you had to witness on your own. You couldn't be told about the fucking Road Warrior Pop.
You'd live it.
You had to fucking feel that shit. I never felt
Yeah,
the
it was
Road
an
Warrior
experience,
Pop.
yeah.
I don't know anybody fucking personally who's ever fucking, because I don't know anybody who lived in the fucking South during those days. But back in the day, the Road Warriors were no fucking joke. They're one of the most iconic, important, famous, legendary tag teams of all fucking time. They demolished everybody. There was that point where they first came into, JCP?
Yep.
Where, like, no one touched them. They beat the fuck out of everybody. Their feud with the fucking Horsemen, they were a big fucking deal. And to see them in 1992 with the machine that is the WWF behind them, which is not totally the machine yet, the way it would end up being, but still
And
a
it
big
just
fucking
actually
deal.
stopped being the machine
Yeah.
and was not yet to be the machine again.
To see them come out on fucking motorcycles in Wembley Stadium around potentially 80,000 fucking plus people with a fucking dummy. Are you shitting me?
Yep.
Jones.
I've watched them beat people. I've watched them bloody people.
Road Warrior Hawk also felt the same exact way.
Yeah,
Like, he
he
wanted no part of that
He
fucking
fucking
Rocco.
quit the next day.
Yeah.
By the way,
Well, he didn't quit. He just didn't show
Yeah.
anymore.
No.
Well,
He's like, I'm going to go on a
call that
bender in
quiet.
fucking
He
London.
was also doing cocaine off of Linda McMahon.
Yeah, well,
and
he
just
was on some shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and rest in peace to both members of the Legion
Yeah,
of
isn't that
Doom.
weird?
Yeah.
They deserve better. The amount of, we're at the point here we talked about it a little bit in Royal Rumble 1992 before we got too hammered to really care about a lot of stuff.
And I disappeared.
And we're not
You
going to
vanished.
And if we ever do WrestleMania 7, that's the starkest realization of this. But a lot of the guys in this era died too young.
Yeah.
And left us. And shockingly, it's not, we know when you watch a wrestling show, you're like, a couple of these guys are dead. There's only a couple of these guys alive.
Yeah.
And it's
it's
shocking.
pretty wild.
Lot of different drugs for these guys.
A lot of stuff, dude.
A lot of stuff going on. A lot of difficulties on their bodies. It was not an environment conducive to sustain a human being.
No.
And, I think history has that mark on this. Jones, talking about LOD real quick. Softball question for you. Top 10 tag team of all time?
Of course.
Okay.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait.
Top 5.
Okay. That's my next question. Top 5?
Yeah.
Top 3?
No.
Okay.
Are we talking about like me as a fan, or I think in general?
However you feel like answering it.
I can answer both ways.
Whoa. I didn't
And
realize
both ways are different.
I didn't realize
Because they're two different answers.
Jones, I didn't realize you went both ways. I'm intrigued.
Doesn't everybody, though?
Tell me more.
Very well played.
In all seriousness, as a fan, they are not in my top 3. But if you ask me, just take your personal feelings out of it, like their impact, what they've done, their lasting impression, what they were able to accomplish, how many tag titles they held, how big and important, how much money they drew. Better yet, how much fucking money did they draw?
Yeah.
Well, fuck, they're in the top 2.
Yeah, look at all the kids in the fucking crowd with their shoulder pads and their faces painted.
I always wanted one
And
of
who
those
would've
shoulder
thought?
pads.
Everybody wanted one of those shoulder
No
pads.
doubt.
That'd be
Hell
better.
yeah!
And no one had the wherewithal to even realize, that's the last time we saw LOD for 3 years before they showed up in WCW.
Yep.
That's some wild shit.
I had those shoulder pads when I was younger playing ice hockey. I got in a lot of trouble for that.
But they frowned
Spikes
upon
are
that.
not
Yeah,
allowed.
it wasn't exactly encouraged.
I would agree with that statement that on my personal tag team, Mount Rushmore, they're not on it. But on the indisputable, take your brain, your heart, and your feelings out of it and put out there, it's a no-brainer that the Road Warriors are on there. Just because also, we're talking about Jim Crockett Promotions, they never had a heel run of any note in the WWF, if they ever did at all. But this is a team that was so hot as heels that they would throw baby faces at them, and these are the people that love that Roddy Piper no non-finish, but no one cared because wrestling was so hot at the time. You loved the brawl to the back, kind of a horseshit. And then they were so over they turned babyface.
Yeah.
But when they needed it, they would just literally take a shoulder pad spike off and stab Dusty Rhodes in the eye, and then they were fucking
If you
heels.
will.
If you will,
If
and then
you
they would
will.
heels again, baby. And then they would come out and they would save Lex Luger, baby. And then the baby faces again, and no one would care until WCW stopped paying them that Road Warrior money, baby. And then they went to Vince McMahon and got themselves a puppet. Is it a rib?
What? The
Put
polka
Dusty,
dots?
the polka
I
dots,
knew you were gonna
the puppet for the fucking Road Warriors.
Look, if you ask certain people in the know, they would say it was not a rib. I think that's bullshit.
Fuck you, Bruce.
It's
Prichard.
gotta
Fuck
be.
you.
Why the fuck would you want that? It's definitely a
Listen,
rip.
Yeah,
it has to be on some level.
it has to be.
It has to be.
It's just like, fuck, if they're that good, if they're that popular, they can get over with a fucking dummy strapped to their body.
I look at it as, in a weird way, like the McDonald's Corporation. You want to go ahead and rope people in for life. You fucking appeal to them as kids. Mm-hmm. And what's going to appeal to any kid? Dusty Rhodes in a fucking polka dot costume,
I mean, that
right?
was it. That was the
Fucking
thing.
Road Warriors with a puppet. Puppets were big then, right? Everybody had fucking Kermit the Frog. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just shooting shit. But you get the idea.
If Vince McMahon, you're in Vince's mindset right now.
Vince, if Vince wanted to go ahead and take the piss out of things that he didn't really create, but also I'm going to fucking justify this because I want to appeal to kids and get you hooked for life and everything.
Do a
Exhibits right at this table.
All the WCW guys.
Yeah. So why the fuck not?
See, on the other side of the coin, and we're getting way off in the weeds on this one, but I think it's a good conversation to have. There are other people who would say, well, that's nonsensical, right? Because money's involved. Why would you go through the effort, R&D'ing things, going through, vignettes? That's money.
Yeah,
Paying
there's got to
for a
be
crew.
some draw.
Why would you do something to not make money, to not draw money? Because back then, especially, Vince's whole thing was his promotion was a promotion. You had to make money. You had to put asses in the seats. There were no big TV deals. There was nothing. They were not a publicly traded company, so they needed to be able to sell tickets. So why, logically, would Vince McMahon, as a rib, give them a fucking puppet because it wouldn't draw money unless he thought it would.
I'm going to answer that question by Googling a list.
That's just the other side of the coin, right? Not saying I agree with it,
see,
but
and
Not every idea is a great idea.
No,
Exactly.
no, and I disagree with the yes man mentality that has said that to us over the time. Bruce Pritchard, he's never going to listen to this fucking show. It's like I say, Bruce Pritchard and all the yes men, who I respect all his contributions, and I love his show. But the idea that why would Vince do that? Why would we have to? Why would we do anything and spend money on something that wouldn't make us amount of money? And allow me to just run down a quick amount of list of WWE stars that Vince McMahon has put himself on camera making out with. And tell me where this fucking drew money. Stacy Keibler, Tori Wilson, Candice Michelle, William Regal, Hornswoggle,
Rocco.
Jim Ross and his ass. All of these people are people that visit Trish Stratus. And he's even had weird incestuous angles with his own daughter. That never drew a fucking dime. They drew way less dimes than Jeff Jarrett ever breaking a guitar over someone's head. But for some strange reason, that's okay. Vince is allowed to do that, even though it just doesn't make any fucking money. But putting Dusty Rhodes, oh no, that's not a rib. That was serious. The fucking greatest wrestling mind that's not Vince McMahon to ever fucking live. Putting him in polka dots, even though he literally ran against you, Starcade, against your events on purpose to compete with you because you were monopolizing the wrestling business. You would never hold a grudge. You would never threaten cable operators that they would never be able to air your pay-per-views if they didn't pull his pay-per-view off of the air. Oh, wait, Vince did do that shit because he is petty about that shit because his ego makes him fucking make out with women 30 years younger. And as we now know about Vince McMahon and his ego,
We know a
that
lot
shit
more.
is like entry-level dick-headed maneuver. So, yeah, the Road Warriors and their fucking puppet, it was just a shot to try to see, if they're good, they can get over with that. If not, fuck them. I've got a whole bunch of the... Let me tell you about the Barbarian and the Warlord.
let's talk about the
pal.
other amazing tag teams they had. Wait.
No,
there
because
were
they had
none.
just broken up all of the other amazing tag teams
Yeah,
they
it's
had the
pretty
year
lacking
before.
at the time.
Because two of those guys and the other amazing tag teams are in singles match later on in the show, and they're doing quite fine.
So we've spent a long time on this match. Let's just go and fast forward this. I'm gonna just tell you my quick thoughts on it.
Yeah.
As an opener, it was fine. It was great, serviceable. But there's one issue I had. One singular issue. There's no Doomsday device. God damn it!
Oh no, I have it in my notes. Ted DiBiase's like, fuck that.
He ain't taking that shit.
Oh no.
I actually had to go back and watch the finish of the match a second time because my brain inserted the Doomsday device.
Yeah.
And I actually realized it didn't happen.
Nope.
And I was like, wait, did that actually not happen? And then I
No,
went back and was
just
like, no,
didn't
it
happen.
didn't. It didn't.
It should have.
It was very...
I mean, it should have, but like Ted DiBiase, you made a lot of money in this company. You're the elder statesman of these four guys in this fucking promotion. Like, I'm not taking that fucking move. I'm not trusting these guys who just drank the entire time on a 12-hour flight over here.
Yeah.
Have not stopped and are pissed about a puppet. I'm not taking that. And Mike Rotunda's like, fuck that, no. Like, how about you just beat me with a power slam? And that's what it is. Now, I did like a couple of spots. Big pop on the hot tag, though. It's Blueprint. It is Blueprint Wrestling in that era, and it was Blueprint Road Warriors, as that nobody took a bump or sold anything until they absolutely had to, and then they popped right up. It's clean finish, though, but definitely...
Yeah,
Ted
it
DiBiase.
was probably a few minutes longer than it needed to be.
went too long.
It was like 15 minutes or something like that. But like you could tell that like Hawk's heart wasn't in it. Like he was just sort of going through the motions. And I think I made a comment about this when we did the Rumble. Like guys in that era were so out of shape compared to wrestlers today. And like just watching this match, I'm like,
They were massive.
the best looking thing in there is fucking Jimmy Hart's suit.
Yeah.
Now,
Bunch of Roy bellies all the way around.
I respectfully disagree with that they're not in shape. They are in a shape.
They're a shape.
There is a shape, and they are in a serviceable wrestling shape.
Oh, for sure.
And what are the now in all seriousness here, because I could obviously take that in a funny direction, maybe.
We're going to.
depending on the.
Or maybe not.
I'm going to let you finish your
maybe
Not as
not.
funny as you think you are.
No, I never said. Look, like we said, just like Vince McMahon and gimmicks, not everyone hits. All right, I just keep throwing them out there for a few that do.
Hey, if you bat 3 out of 10, you're an all-star.
That's right. It's putting you in the hall.
Yeah.
You're still hitting.
Yeah. These guys weren't asked to do a lot in the ring for a lot of these matches.
No.
The moves were, I don't want to say basic, but compared to what you see today and the athleticism that a lot of these wrestlers bring, Ted DiBiase wasn't asked to do a whole lot. The natural disasters weren't being asked to do a whole lot.
No.
Nails was not being asked to do a whole lot.
For good reason, but we'll get into that
Well,
later.
of course, right? So you don't need to look like fucking, I'm even trying to think of somebody who's just like completely cut right now. Well, you don't have to look like Scott Steiner. You don't have to look like Seth Rollins or Ricochet or any of these guys today, because it just wasn't being asked of them. So, and you know, you go back to a lot of the guys at this time where you're just, a lot of them they're on the ground, they're not climbing ropes, they're not jumping, they're not flipping. There's a lot of grapple moves. There's a lot of whips and punches and things like that.
There wasn't like the grandiose spectacle that there is today.
Yeah. So if you know,
wrestling in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So you know, you're a guy like Dusty Rhodes who has a certain physique. You are in shape to do what you do, and you can go. Yeah. And these guys, I think, for that were in shape. But you know, it wasn't until we get to the final match of the night where you realize what happens when you're really in shape.
When you know what you're doing,
and you know what you're doing, and then what that match. Because when you look at the first couple of matches of this card. And I'll say Virgil aside, because, you know, going into that next match, I was impressed with his athleticism. I forgot how fucking athletic Virgil was when he was, you know, when he was younger and everything.
Virgil.
Yeah, peak Virgil.
Fragility.
But nobody was fucking moving like those last two guys were in that final match.
No.
And when you saw that match, everybody else fucking realized, well, now we know where we got to go.
Yeah.
Because that was
that's
you
the
just
bar.
saw where
when we get there for sure. I just think this match was a perfect example of what was an acceptable heat. I mean, crowd was hot for everything all night. But this was 1992 pre-SummerSlam. This match, LOD versus Money Inc., would have probably main evented all the B house show loops, and everyone would have been fine with it because it's the fucking Road Warriors against Ted DiBiase. It's like that. Oh, mega heel, mega baby faces, and you know. But
it was originally supposed to be Legion of Doom versus Natural Disasters, right? Mm-hmm. But because of all the shit that was going on backstage, they're like, let's shuffle the card.
They turned Natural Disasters babyface and moved in the direction to avoid. And actually, I think it was it Sags or Knobs? One of the Nasty Boys is legit hurt, which is the only reason why it was the Beverly Brothers in the Natural Disasters spot and not.
Well, the Nasty Boys worked the first Dark match.
Yeah, but legit. Yeah. Like it was 2 minutes and 18 seconds, whatever the Dark match was. So
what was going on backstage, Jeff?
Cocaine. A lot of it.
A lot in Quaaludes.
We'll get into that in a little bit.
Oh, there's
a whole lot more cocaine to come.
There's a lot more cocaine to come, folks. But it's a wrestling show, so it's a return of the NOAH rating system. And despite all of the flaws, and this did have, it had some spots. I liked first of all, great comical moment is when Hawk decides that he wants to sell, but not really sell. It doesn't want to bump, and he does like the stagger, arms out like a toddler who just woke up from a nap. But I do like that clothesline spot where $1 Million Man moved into like an 8th gear of speed to get out of the way of that fucking lumbering motherfucker. But I gave it 2 weird-ass puppets out of 5.
Good.
That's fair.
Are we going to talk about the pre-tapes? Or only when they're completely batshit crazy?
I really want to briefly just... one, I've said again, I'll say it every time I get a chance to just stand to the heavens and say that we need another Gene Okerlund really badly in professional wrestling.
Oh my god!
And not so much that it was Gene Okerlund. There's an emotional attachment I have to that like his character, who he was. But I think it's imperative that you need somebody to help dress the story.
Yeah.
To really add context.
Frame it.
Because he was the audience. He would be he'd become disgusted.
Oh, yeah.
He would get excited. Like,
he's a fucking pro.
Spoke
Put
for
that
us.
cigarette out.
Like, he didn't get fucks. But then he could, I'll call my lawyer if you touch me. I love that shit. Right?
Oh, dude.
He was so good at
He added, like, that legitimate... Like, when you, like, picture 80s wrestling... You picture Hogan and Savage and stuff, but then you got to picture Mean Gene
right in the middle,
holding the microphone right there. Yeah, 100%.
He had the ability to tell the story where some of these guys might not have been able to. I mean, you see the legendary clips of him with Macho Man and with Hogan and Warrior and everybody else at that time. But, when you just kind of see him work like he did here, they don't have to say much.
Nope.
He can just go, and he can put you in a position where you don't have to think about what to say. You can just react to what he's
You're
basically...
just responding to him.
He's feeding you. He will guide you through, and I think that gave a lot of context to a lot of these guys that we really grew up to love in the 80s and early 90s.
Without realizing they couldn't
without
promo
realizing,
for shit.
or even if they could, it just elevated it so much. And compared to today's, guys who... well, we're backstage, and here's Brock Lesnar. And then Brock goes off whatever was scripted for him for the next, 2 minutes. And then Brock leaves, and they're just standing there.
With that goofy look.
With that goofy look on their face, like,
back to you guys.
Here's the danger.
They don't even say back to you. At least these guys fucking said at least back to you,
Here's the danger of Gene Okerlund, and I'm going to go counter, and we've seen this
ought to be good.
previously in our archives, is that you can use your power for good, which is to direct guys like Ric Flair and the British Bulldog to serviceable promos when you're given direction. Or you can use your power for evil, as noticeable in Halloween Havoc 1995, where Mean Gene Okerlund just decides he doesn't care about what he's doing. He's just going to argue with people on live pay-per-view for 8 minutes. Who knows why the fuck they're there? Then he just cuts people off and sends it away because Eric Bischoff is having a coronary off camera. And it's because Gene, he was getting paid. He was getting paid no matter what the fuck you did.
Guaranteed money, baby.
Yeah, gotta get that WCW
Guaranteed
dollars.
money, honey, buddy. Yeah.
Gene backstage with Flair. Now here's the thing: we all know what match comes last. They mentioned the Bulldog Brett match in the start when the kid decides that Bulldogs can win whether they like it or not, and then nobody talks about the match in the storyline until it's time. But they spend the entire pay-per-view promoting the WWF Championship match and trying to get the storyline over.
Mr. Perfect angle.
Exactly, and this is pre-Raw, so they didn't have a primetime weekly vehicle. That Raw would still be, 4 or 5 months away before it debuts. So they spend the entire pay-per-view when they're not actively in the ring selling you this, and that's exactly what Gene's doing with Flair. Starting this is your thread throughout the whole show. Whose corner is Perfect in? Whose corner is Flair in?
Can I answer your question?
Yeah?
I didn't give shit.
No, but because we knew what was coming.
Well, no, I'm sitting there watching it, and trying to put myself back in that state, but I didn't care. If that storyline was weak.
They're trying to put
it had no legs.
It
But
had
the
no
thing
legs,
was
yeah.
if you look at the entire card, it's like you have fucking Ric Flair on the roster, and he's not on the card. So they're gonna milk that shit the whole way through without him actually having to quote unquote work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's still getting paid that Flair showing up money.
Yeah.
But he's just not... you couldn't have Flair do the thing he did best at that time, which is bump around.
Gene's like, you're not wrestling tonight. Why are you wearing your robe and your tights? And he's like, hey, I never know when I gotta go to work.
I have quite a few Flair jokes lined up for later in the show. But there's a lot of other wrestlers that are in the show that Flair could have gone to a non-finish with.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other guys. But then we get Sean Mooney, wrestler of the time, in a pre-tape with Virgil.
Yeah, real quick, all I wrote about Virgil is he cut a way harder promo than he had any business cutting.
Until he said too legit to quit.
Yeah, well,
at
listen,
the end of
it's going to fall apart at some point.
Look, in the 90s, we were legit. So then we had to quit.
I mean,
I must
that was
admit.
just the law.
Yes.
That was just the law. I have my notes here. Virgil, he charged Sean Mooney $20 for this interview.
I did like... I didn't understand the entire angle of that, of what was going on with the Macho Man and Ultimate Warrior match, and really what role that Flair and Mr. Perfect were playing in it.
Well, Flair thought he was a number one contender.
No. I kind of start to put that together. I just didn't know what the whole purpose of the match was. Well, which corner is he in? And they kept showing all the vignettes of what was going on before this, and it was just vignettes of Flair and Mr. Perfect beating the shit out of
babyface.
It doesn't make any sense.
No, we're I'm sitting there, and again, this was late at night, and I've been drinking, so I was probably a little bit more confused than I should have been. But I'm sitting there why does it fucking matter what corner he's in? Because every video they showed me, Mr. Perfect is beating the shit out of both of them.
Yep.
It's not like he's helping anybody.
Yeah.
Which is why I said I didn't care.
And
No.
And I thought to myself, and again, I know why it wasn't, but that should have been the fucking tag match. Give me Flair and Perfect against Macho Man and Ultimate Warrior. Fucking take my money. That would have been a
there
way
was
better
an original
match.
plan
That's where they were going
at the last
Yeah.
minute.
And that's where they were going. And
Warrior was supposed to go heel, and then he's like, "Fuck you, I'm not doing that."
Was it cocaine?
And so
there's
we'll get to the
of
cocaine.
stuff.
There's a whole mountain of cocaine that
Whole
fuels
bunch of
that
cocaine.
match.
When we get to that,
Repressed feelings for other people. That's all gonna come out.
when we get to that match, I'll pinpoint the exact moment where the cocaine hits for Ultimate Warrior and know that fucking ring, because I saw it happen. I saw it.
Well, now Virgil is making his way out. Virgil got music to something that I did not remember Virgil ever having music, except the time when he's like, Yokozuna, when he gets squashed by Yokozuna. I remember that one moment, but I never knew he had music before that. And the people of England are so starved for entertainment that they pop for Virgil.
Now listen. I'll give Virgil shit, the character shit, all I want.
Yep.
But let's be fucking fair. This is kind of off the heels of him turning on the
year and a half.
Yeah, that's still a big deal. He's still a big name, and you know what? He was in good shape. He was moving around. Virgil
he was
wasn't
still
a
working.
terrible wrestler. He was not bad
No.
by any stretch. He just sidled with a weird gimmick, and they didn't really do much with him beyond that.
He was just defeated by his crippling love of meat sauce. From
I have a fun side story about Virgil. So, my wife and I went to Philadelphia. It was probably 15 plus years ago to go to Wizard World in Philly.
Yeah.
We were going there to meet Kevin Smith. Virgil was also there. He had a table. There was no one there.
Never is.
So we leave Philadelphia. And I'm like, man, I'm really hungry. So we pull off some random exit, go into a McDonald's. Here's fucking sad Virgil in sweatpants, sitting in the corner, just eating his fucking Big Mac, doesn't want to be bothered, doesn't want to talk to anybody. And every time I see a Virgil match, all I see is sad Virgil at McDonald's. And I can't take it serious anymore. Not that I took it serious originally, because it's fucking Virgil.
It's Virgil.
You went way further to hang out with Virgil than you needed to. Just go down to the Whitfield's house. Because my 2 notes for this match were, I've hung out with Virgil down at the Whitfield's house. Just randomly invited over for a Whitfield birthday party. Those were fucking legendary. I don't remember Nails. That's all I have about that match.
I had no recollection of Nails, and then I was like, this seems vaguely familiar, when I rewatched it, and then I was like, I hit the Google, and I was like, oh yeah, now I remember.
Who's the boss,
Now
man?
I remember.
See, I vividly remember Nails, but before we get to him jacking off that nightstick the entire time, here's my Virgil story. So, in my very short-lived career as an indie wrestler, all right, I was at a show in the Mon Valley of Pennsylvania, and I was in a tag team match, and I was a bad guy, and my moveset is extreme.
Do you mean heel?
Yes, this is a heel.
That's for you, the dear listeners.
For the smart listeners, the heel. And my moveset as a heel was, Jones has seen me wrestle as a babyface, was even more limited than my moveset as a babyface, as a heel. So I come in, and I just start stomping on a guy, and I grab a reverse chin lock so the babyface can get some air. Gino was the babyface's name, and he's selling, and he's reaching. Now, where we are in this room is the ring, and all the chairs are surrounding the ring, and then in the back is the snack bar. And the babyface is selling, and he's like, and I'm laughing, and the babyface is like, holy shit, is that Virgil? And he's it goes from selling into chin lock, and he looks all the way across the crowd, and there in the snack aisle is Virgil getting himself some nachos. And I immediately started laughing, stomped him, and tagged out. And I just stood on the apron watching Virgil, who had not really paying attention to me wrestle. And I kid you not, a guy and his kid go up to talk to Virgil, and from what I understood, talking to the guy afterward at intermission, Virgil tried to charge him $20 to take a picture of them while he was in line for nachos.
Can we
Gotta
go?
pay for those nachos
That's
somehow.
what you do.
Gotta get that nacho money.
They don't pay
He
for
didn't
themselves.
have that $1 million DiBiase money at that point.
He did pay to get into the show, I found out from the box office, which is good.
So let me just go back for a second. So the chairs were around the ring?
Yeah, that's where typically chairs are.
Are you what a fucking concept.
I know, right?
Have you trademarked this?
I have personally been going for chairs all in one straight line to get as far away from the ring in a single row. The way you could say there's 300 rows in your arena, one chair deep, but no one's bought on that idea yet.
Someday.
One day.
You should work on that.
But Virgil. Holy shit, is that Virgil? Cracked me, broke me, tagged out. couldn't stop looking at him the entire time because I keep thinking about all this era. But Nails. So Nails, we get to talk about Nails now. So Nails
with a Z.
With a Z. So in the era where they made constant monster heels for Hulk Hogan, right? And they would bring in constant baby faces for your Macho King or Jake Roberts just to be fed and moved along, and they'd start at the top and work their way down. At some point in 1991, 1992, they got the idea, Big Boss Man's been good to us. The kids love the cop. Let's give him his own custom, the Kane to his Undertaker. And so what's the opposite of a corrections officer in the Deep South? Well, an inmate from the Deep South. Well, the Boss Man's already a big guy, so we need a guy bigger. The Boss Man's got a big old intimidating voice. So, however, the guy that played Nails wasn't. He had a little Brock Lesnar voice.
He was David Prowse as Darth Vader.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they dropped his voice down artificially in all of his promos. What's the G? So he sounds like Kevin McAllister in Home Alone 2 with the talk boy. So he never cut a promo in real life. And the only thing they ever told him was once after, of course, he got his heat on the Boss Man and choked him out. That was his finish for a little while, was a choke. Was just go out and just jack off a nightstick and look intimidating. No other direction other than that. Just started jacking off that nightstick.
So he choked and then he jacked off.
Yeah. So
some people try to do that together.
Fits in line with our audience in a lot of ways, from what I understand. We appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Fuck you. But Nails would not be long for this world because, ironically, he would actually choke Vince McMahon out over a payday. And would be escorted from the building and fired and never heard from in wrestling again.
And nothing of value was lost.
No. Nobody, except maybe the Boss Man who lost an opponent. Of course, he would bounce around for a few years before going to WCW.
Was that Boss Man's nightstick that he was jerking off?
Yes, that was. That was the idea of taking that souvenir. Took the Boss Man's nightstick and just started jacking it off. Who's the boss man, is what he would say, is he just would jerk off the nightstick in promos. That's all he would say.
Yeah,
we never really found out who the boss was.
I had heard, I don't know if it was on a podcast or something I was listening to or watching, but that Bret Hart had heard a commotion from Vince's office, and it was Vince getting shoved out of his chair from Nails, and then getting choked, and then security coming in and breaking it all up and escorting him out.
So after the match, so Nails wins with a shitty side choke. Match is so shitty, even Vince doesn't know how to call it. They're just calling basic, and then of course a very large white inmate starts beating on the man of color with a nightstick, which is very 1992 to have happened. And is not the most racist thing that's going to happen on this show.
Nope, I got that
note. Not at all.
Nope. So I have, and here's the thing though, being real, Virgil takes 5 minutes in, takes his second bump. There are 4 bumps in the entire match, none of which are done by Nails, all of which are done by Virgil against his own will. I rate Nails versus Virgil 0 bumps out of 5.
It was fucking terrible match.
Yeah, not a good match.
No.
Yeah.
And we talked about it way longer than the actual match. The actual match was
and
less
that's a
than 4
travesty in
minutes.
itself.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said about what you also just said about the call with Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
I was really underwhelmed by the call on this card altogether. Now, the crowd, I think, was so loud at some point that they probably were having, I think, some difficulty hearing each other. But, I mean, you could have put that thing on mute. I don't think lost anything from the pay-per-view, because I think just the two, between Heenan and Vince, I just thought it was awful.
I disagree. I think Vince didn't add too much because Vince is doing that constant yelling, and he's all the way up here, and he's never coming down. But Heenan came to work.
Yeah.
Heenan always comes to work.
It's like, stop it, Bobby.
There's not a lot to do for Heenan in these instances, but there's matches that have no business Heenan even attempting to get over. We'll get there, but he does. So I disagree with that. But yeah, Vince underwhelmed me. But he's the babyface.
I would agree with that. I think it's right in the middle between the two of you guys, because honestly, Vince is not a bad play-by-play guy. He's not bad, but he just wasn't good in this show.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
The Brain Man, god damn it, he just is always doing his thing.
And total MVP. Total MVP. Well, moving along to someone who's not an MVP, we get a pre-tape with Alfred, which in that instance...
Lord Alfred
Hayes. Yes.
Bite your tongue.
Who is in the very worst performance of his career in this pay-per-view, doing the most pointless pre-tapes in the history of wrestling. The first of which here, he's looking for Mr. Perfect. He tries to break into Savage's locker room. Like, he tries to commit a felony, but it's not in the United States. So I think they won't extradite. He's already English. Technically, is there a law being broken? I don't know.
a lord.
The real question is, what was...
He's a fucking lord.
There's no
What was
laws for
Alfred get a
lords.
Jew in there? Yeah. Well, it's, whatever the fuck he wants to, I guess, is the answer. But he's just here to continue the perfect Macho Man Savage storyline. And then we get pre-tape with someone who, I just feel bad that I never think of, but she is so goddamn incredible. Sensational Sherry.
Yep.
True, absolute legend. Breaking down that the Rick Mardell, or whatever we ended up calling him, versus Shawn Michaels match is basically all based around who Sherry wants to fuck.
True.
And that is enough to actually get us into the next match.
No, it's who's she winking at.
Yeah.
Or who's winking at her.
Talking about...
Either way, she looks like fucking Zool from Ghostbusters.
Did she wink back?
Looking for the Keymaster.
Oh, she found a few Keymasters. I think.
No shit.
Keys, yeah.
I just loved how the euphemism for this was she winked, and then he winked back, and then she winked back, and I'm like, that's fucking.
See, Sherry kind of remind me of the kind of person that you'd go into a bar and you'd go into the bathroom and she would wink at you while you're in the bathroom, and you wouldn't have no idea what the hell just happened to you, and you would repress that memory until you realize, oh yeah, she just sexually assaulted you in the bathroom of a Denny's.
You just
Sherry. Has Sherry's ever been told no? Was anyone that crazy to ever tell her no?
Did you
Even
see,
if they said
no
no,
one's smart.
she didn't
No.
care.
did you see
She's
her in the
taking that
assless
shit.
chaps?
Yep.
No, nobody said no.
No, nobody would say
No.
No, she was a heel. So how about someone had heat back in the day?
Oh yeah, when I was a kid, I was convinced up until I got access to the internet and discovered that I was terribly fucking wrong. I was convinced that Sherry and the model were either brother and sister or they were fucking married.
Because they were both Martells.
I mean, it made perfect fucking sense. Yeah. I'd lean towards the brother and sister part, both dark hair. I could see that working out, you know? I was totally fucking wrong. I was so disappointed when I realized they were not
One's
related.
a French Canadian and one is deep South lady.
Very deep South, which
Yeah.
you can't tell.
How deep?
Deep.
So fucking deep.
Real deep.
At least
Oh, man.
2 knuckles deep into the South.
Jesus Christ.
However, the further south you get, the more related those knuckles are to you. But we'll ignore right past that.
Oh boy.
Anyways.
So the match itself, no hitting in the face, which didn't last that long.
Nope. Oh,
No. All it took was a slap halfway through.
Oh,
It was
and Shawn
only a
Michaels
slap.
hitting such a nice drop kick that he forgot about it. And Martel gets a welt on the side of his face. Shawn Michaels absolutely blasted him with the drop kick.
And this was very early Heartbreak Kid.
Oh, dude,
And-
yeah.
The earliest.
And it's fun when it's two heels because like they're both so bitter and angry, and
Yeah.
the crowd's just eating it up because there's like we don't know who to root for, so we're going to root for both guys.
Yep.
Shawn Michaels to me looked like he just walked right out of a Def Leppard video.
For
in
sure.
This, in this match.
Whitesnake
Like this was like Aha Take On Me, where he just fucking walked through from black and white to color.
Yep.
It just happened to be in Wembley Stadium at the same time.
I mean, we're still in the first year of Shawn's heel turn. Like, within the first year, the barbershop was less than a year ago. And it was so surreal to me that Heenan is whistling and singing along to Shawn Michaels' theme song. Like, you know those generations met, but you didn't realize that Heenan, just because Shawn Michaels is a heel, is all on Team Shawn Michaels. You just kind of look at those as that's the era after Heenan went to WCW that Shawn Michaels started to blossom.
Yeah,
But
the highlight of this match for me was the commentary and the sexual innuendos that were dropped throughout the match. Vince McMahon references Sherry's Twin Peaks.
Yep.
Bobby-
That's what Peaks joke.
Body of the Brain asks which one of them is going to pile drive Sherry. And then he made a joke which probably didn't stick then, but it sticks pretty well right now. He asked Vince what he would do if Sherry was his neighbor, if she lived, if she lived on his street. And I was like, oh yeah, he'd fucking that.
Oh yeah, oh for sure. There's when Sherry's ass is out the entire time. Vince makes the idea about talk about being cheek to cheek, which is again you're talking about the most risque thing they'd ever done in the WWF until this pay-per-view.
Just fishing that ass cheeks.
Was Elizabeth whipping her skirt off and showing that she was in a bikini bottom at the main event of SummerSlam 4 years before.
Yeah, this was pre tits and ass, pre Attitude Era.
And Sherry was ahead
She
of
was
the game.
showing quite a bit of skin.
So much cheek there, and I was not complaining about it. And it wasn't like you know we're talking about modern day wrestlers here in 2022, and like having an ass is now like a science. You know, there's like measurable quantity. What's the curve ratio? You know, it's like physics involved in that ass. But Sherry was ahead of the curve, man. You didn't really care because you didn't see any cheeks. And it was a welcome oasis.
No, and then there was the fake passing out. So Shawn Michaels tries to kiss her while she's passed out, and
There you
then
go.
Rick the Model's just hand to titty trying to give her CPR.
Yeah. Just everyone
Well,
get
it's
in
good
there.
times. It's good
It's actually
times.
so, the match works better for it. So there's a lot of babyface versus babyface and heel versus heel on this show.
Yeah.
There's 3 matches where people of the same alignment fight each other. This is the only heel and heel, and this match actually achieves the comedy aspect that other stuff was going for.
Yeah, it
on
was
this
pretty
show.
entertaining for
Yeah.
not as much action as you would think there would be in a match with fucking Shawn Michaels.
My favorite part of this match was right at the end when Shawn's trying to carry her out,
Yeah.
and then he gets knocked over. She drops.
He fucking dumps her.
fucking dumps her. Then the model picks her up and carries her, and then he gets fucking dropped, and she hits again.
See, they gotta
and then
be
Sean
Riveter,
picks
man.
him up. Like, the fact that they just kept doing that all the way down the runway until Rick comes out with the fucking bucket, you know? I got a kick out of that. I thought that was actually really funny.
And there was that really weird camera shot where she's laying and like the camera's like up against her face and just like it kept like peeking up to see which one of them was going to come back next.
And it was like someone had a cheeky idea with laying that down.
Ridiculous.
But yeah, you gotta tell someone was Riv and Sherry because they're like, all right, we're gonna carry her, and then guys are gonna fight over. But I mean, Sherry's a worker, right? So she was former WWF Women's Champion. She's one of the first people to beat Moolah. And in that era, before they discovered that she's more money as a heel, so why waste her wrestling? Just stick her with somebody else. But she bumps, so they're like, "Oh, we're not just gonna put her down. They fucking throw her down the alleyway like they're bowling for Sherry."
Yeah, it was pretty much like Cornhole, but 1992.
It was incredible.
Speaking of Cornhole, those were not the only cheeks. Sherry's were not the only cheeks we saw, because we saw Sean's and we saw Rick Martell's.
Oh yeah, there's an entire ass crack segment.
There was like a 4 like reversal ass crack like extravaganza going on at that point too.
Which is it for some strange reason, and I never realized it until this moment that I put it an idea that Shawn Michaels' ass crack was like one of his character traits from the minute he turned heel until he found Jesus. Like, that was like, it's a Shawn Michaels match, his ass is out. It's at WrestleMania 14, WrestleMania 12, WrestleMania 11, WresleMania 10, and the ladder match, his ass is out the whole time.
If his ass crack got elected into the Hall of Fame, would the rest of Shawn Michaels be there for the induction ceremony?
I would say that
he wouldn't be looking at it because of his lazy eye.
I was going to say most of his hair would not be able to make the attendance. His hairline would be missing as well. But anyway, I really enjoyed this match. I thought on a show where most matches are subpar in a way, the main event is incredible, and one of the matches goes way better than it should. On paper, you're like, oh yeah, this has a lot of legs, and they don't do the technical wrestling, even though they were doing some impressive shit that was ahead of its time, the cartwheel spots and the one-upsmanship. But I thought this match was way more entertaining than it had to be, and it was like, instead of having Virgil and Nails, and later on with Crush and Barry Darso, like this is what we want to kill time to get everybody into the second half of the year. So I gave this thing 3 butt cheeks out of 5.
That's fair.
It's a fair amount of cheeks.
Take it.
What? Why, Noah? Why are butt cracks? Why are butt cracks vertical and not horizontal?
Why, Dave?
Because if you go down a slide, you'll go.
God damn it.
Oh, boy. I like how sometimes she's got to crack herself up.
Yeah.
I've said that joke so many times, and it still just made me laugh.
So moving past the shitty pre-tape with the Nasty Boys, largely wasting the amount of time.
Yes, I didn't write a single thing about it.
Nope, I just put
same.
shitty pre-tape with the Nasty Boys.
Not
They
good.
laugh at Sherry.
Not good.
The next match is for the World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Championship. It's the Natural Disasters versus the Beverly Brothers. Now, first of all, I thought there was a lot of ass cheeks in the Sherry's match, but hold on, folks. We're about to get there. But the Beverly Brothers, who I have purposely probably blocked out of my mind from this era, right? They have porn music. They come out to porn music.
Yes.
And I just could imagine Vince like, give them porn music, and Jim Johnston's like, cool, I
can do that.
Let's play on a Casio. There we go. And they're going to be facing the reigning WWF Tag Team Champions, Earthquake and Typhoon, the Natural Disasters, who are baby faces now somehow. How's everyone feel about this?
Yeah. There was a match that happened.
It did.
The notes that I have is on those two guys, those belts look like toy belts.
Teeny, teeny.
They're so small. The match was sort of lackluster. I don't remember the Beverly Brothers that much. I think the best thing about it was sort of the ambiance of the stadium, because that's when sunset hit.
Yeah.
And you could start to see like the lighting change and everything, just like the overall feel and the mood of the building. And they started focusing on the crowd more. And I'm sorry to all of our friends who were in Wembley Stadium in 1992. It was an ugly fucking crowd.
Oh, man.
Like, it was not.
There's some really unattractive motherfuckers in there.
They made Earthquake and Typhoon look like, okay, look at those handsome devils.
Listen, if you were in that crowd in 1992, you fucking know what you did. You know what you look like.
Yeah.
Don't fucking try to pretend like you didn't.
I hope you fix that over 30 years.
They did not. They did not.
As far as I'm concerned, so I approached this. It started, and I went, well, I'm gonna go take a shit. So I got up, and I came back. The match was still going, and I'm like, well, all right, let's get something to eat. So I got up and I started fucking around in the kitchen to get something to eat. It didn't take very long, like a minute or two. Came back and I'm like, all right, let's finish this shit. And you know what? It was surprisingly good. I'm not saying it was the best fucking match I've ever seen, but for who was in it, like the last couple minutes were pretty solid for who was in it.
Yeah, the finish was solid.
I do agree with you on that.
And the crowd was hot for it.
The crowd was not just hot for it. They were fucking, like, all in for it. Like, this was the point in the this was the point I thought in the night where the crowd almost started to be like a joke upon itself by how into the matches they were.
Yeah.
You know?
Like they really started to come alive for this show. And as the night went on, they didn't diminish. They got fucking hotter,
it got
dude.
hotter and hotter,
They
man.
did. So my two major thoughts that had nothing to do with the wrestling in this match. At one point, I noticed that everybody in this match had a mullet. We've now started the true mullet section, not like the IRS slight mullet, right? And like the little hanging on mullet or the Shawn Michaels mullet, but with Rick Martel with no. Everyone in this match had a mullet, not just a mullet. There's 4 different mullets happening in this match. Earthquake has the horseshoe type mullet. Tugboat is rocking the Leonard Skinner mullet, right? Bo Beverly has the 80s car salesman mullet, and Blake Beverly has the WCW babyface mullet.
It's funny. It's like an envision it.
Yes.
You know exactly
They
what
all
it
have
is.
four-
You know exactly what it is.
Everyone in this fucking match has a mullet, and it's all 4. It's like it's the mullet match. The other thing I noticed was at one point when he comes in for his House of Fire, Earthquake's trunks.
Did you call him Earth Cheek?
It was.
His trunks gave up the fight against them cheeks, dude.
Have you ever
Like,
seen a male camel toe? Because that happened to his ass.
I describe it like
The fault line was real.
they kept escaping. It looks like, this is my note I have, it looks like 2 Volkswagens being held up by a hammock. Like those things fucking go, and like no amount of lycra or spandex was going to keep those things in. And when he hit that finish, it was cheeks ablaze, baby.
There is something to be said about looking at a man that looks like Earthquake or Typhoon with their hair. Because you're talking mullets, they weren't full mullets.
No.
Their hair was running away their hairline was running away faster from the front of their face than they could even keep up with.
It was just like someone slid his hair down his back.
It wasn't like full on Hogan all the way
Just-
back, but it was getting there.
Yeah,
It was there.
Oh,
Yeah.
my God.
if you saw Earthquake and Typhoon in an airport, you would think that they should be pushing a janitorial cart, sweeping the place, not being the fucking WWF reigning tag team champions,
Yep.
performing in front of 80,000 fans who fucking loved every single second of it. I felt like Mick Foley won the title for the first time when this match ended.
Yeah, like
It erupted like that.
when Earthquake cued his finish, the place went fucking nuts, and they didn't come back down until after the disasters were out of the ring.
The only thing that I could think of is the crowd was so excited that he didn't kill that man when he landed on his head.
It was safe. It was
a safe bomb.
It was real
Yeah.
safe. He didn't Yokozuna, the poor jobber. He
No, he didn't
He
jump
went down
down.
real nice, and the crowd didn't care. They didn't chant "You fucked up." But the natural disasters retain because we got baby faces. They gotta be all over this goddamn show.
Heenan made a comment about 8 rows back flying off their seats whenever natural disasters hit the ring.
Bobby Heenan makes an Earl of Sandwich joke, and it's fantastic about the weight of the natural disasters. Completely underrated. But we have baby faces. And it's at this point I realized that going into the show, and because of the nature of this, at the end of this, a baby faces every champion in the WWF. At this point in 1992, it's an interesting time. I gave this match, because of how hot the crowd was and how not bad it was, 2 Thunder Cheeks out of 5.
I think that's fair.
Oh
So
All right.
let's get to a match that isn't fair.
Before we do, I just got to mention
Yeah,
the
pump the
fucking
brakes.
pure cocaine fueled madness that is the pre-tape with the fucking Bushwhackers.
Oh my
Oh
God.
my God.
Dude, they came straight off a bender into that room with a microphone in their face.
It's fucking brutal, dude.
There's
92
something about
was a hell of a
watching
year.
them and
Yeah.
listening to them when they cut a promo where it's like you just stare off. and you're caught in it. It's like the eye of the fucking hurricane.
You like start turning away. Your body turns away, but your head can't stop.
You realize that the Bushwhackers weren't like actually performing. That's just what their face looked like when they did cocaine.
That's who they are. There's an infamous story Bret Hart tells about how fucking crazy the Bushwhackers, when they used to be known as the Sheep Herders, were.
Yes.
You know about this story?
I might.
About how they would live for fucking with other wrestlers that they saw on the highway with them. So Bret Hart is driving down the road, and he had Jim Neidhart and Jimmy Hart in the back of their car, and they come up on a car that he's like, that looks like the car that the Bushwhackers have, the Sheep Herders, because that's how they knew them from Calgary. And the car starts slowing down, and Bret's behind him like, what's wrong? And it's like slowing down obnoxiously, and while Bret's driving, the fucking trunk pops open on the car, and there's one Bushwhacker dry humping the other one while they're going down the highway.
Who's driving the car?
I don't know.
Jesus.
Brett never said, but I've never been able to get that image out of my head. It's like, what the fuck? And boom,
It's just
in the back of the Cadillac.
Making eye contact, I'm sure.
And for that, thank God the Bushwhackers are in the Hall of Fame for that fucking story alone.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so they make some jokes about taking a shit in the Royal Palace. And
They lick cocaine.
Yeah.
Gene Okerlund just has a good time.
Can we acknowledge the elephant in the fucking room here?
Cocaine?
No. Well, that was the other elephant in the room. And I don't remember, because they were in the 92 Rumble, weren't they? They were in the 92 Rumble.
Yeah.
I was too drunk to remember what the fuck we talked about, so I don't know if I brought this up. But the elephant in the room for me, as a kid, as a fucking grown-ass man, still stands. These motherfuckers lick children's heads.
They licked everybody.
And it's fucking weird to me. And I
in
cannot...
hindsight, it's like, I probably should have let that dude lick my head.
Hindsight,
Weird.
motherfucker, that shit was weird then. Just like, what do you mean hindsight?
As a kid, you're like, come on, fuck it.
Give me that shit. Give me the hepatitis.
I remember, like, as a kid seeing on TV and going,
Why
would...
Yeah.
Who does that?
You're like, I can either get Brett's glasses or I can get my head licked by a bushwhacker.
My only thought is, maybe the only explanation I have is, it's like the trauma of it. The kids, it happened. They're on TV. It's too late.
It's done. It's there.
It's just the moment happens. They're licked.
It just seems like all of that would be evidence in a court case later, but we didn't even
what
get to that
the
point.
fuck, man?
Oh my god.
It's such a weird thing to do.
Guys.
Yeah.
So, ready for it?
No.
It's a two-parter.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Wait.
We are going a little long.
We're doing a wrestling episode, and it's going to turn into a two-parter? The fuck you say?
How
At some
dare
point,
you.
we will actually do an entire pay-per-view in one sitting. I don't know when that'll be.
Probably
I don't
not.
know.
Probably not.
I don't think we can. We didn't even manage. Wait, no, we did. We did do one. We did In Your House 1995 as one pay-per-view because the show's an hour and 28
That
minutes.
does
That's
make
the
things
only-
easier.
The show,
fan request,
our pay-per-view,
yes.
our review is still 2 hours. I just didn't feel like splitting it in half.
You
so.
basically are saying that if we ever just fucking decided to like do a Raw, it's still going to be two-parter.
Yep.
God damn it.
And speaking of doing it raw, we're doing you raw, you fucking nasty sluts. Listening each and every week. Yeah, fuck you. You like it. You don't, but you do. But you don't. But you do. Who cares? I don't. Fuck you. Next week, part 2.